The cosmos has always been a realm of mysteries, but what astronomers discovered about 3I Atlas in recent weeks has shattered every comfortable assumption about how reality itself operates. This is not another story about a wandering space rock or an unusual comet passing through our neighborhood. This is about particles that should not exist, behaviors that violate fundamental physics, and patterns that suggest something far stranger than artificial intelligence or alien technology. We are talking about evidence of dimensional manipulation, quantum signatures that point toward a barrier between universes growing dangerously thin, and the terrifying possibility that 3I Atlas is not traveling through space at all, but rather tearing through the fabric of space-time itself, the impossible particle signature. When the James Webb Space Telescope turned its infrared sensors toward 3I Atlas during its approach phase, the data that came back made absolutely no sense according to any known model of particle physics. The spectroscopic analysis revealed something that caused the senior scientists reviewing the data to request immediate verification from multiple independent observatory systems. They found particles with quantum signatures that do not correspond to any element on the periodic table, any known isotope, or any theoretical exotic matter that physicists have ever proposed in legitimate scientific literature. These particles exhibited properties that seemed to shift between states in ways that violated the Pauli exclusion principle, one of the most fundamental rules governing how matter behaves at the quantum level. Under normal circumstances, identical fermions cannot occupy the same quantum state simultaneously. Yet the particles surrounding 3I Atlas appeared to do exactly that, existing in multiple incompatible states at the same time without collapsing into a single definite configuration when observed. This is not quantum superposition as we understand it from standard physics. This is something that suggests the particles are not entirely present in our dimensional framework. The energy signatures associated with these impossible particles showed fluctuations that corresponded to no known atomic or molecular process. The wavelengths detected included frequencies that should require temperatures exceeding those found in the cores of the most massive stars, yet these emissions were occurring in the frigid vacuum of space where temperatures hover just a few degrees above absolute zero. The mathematical models that physicists use to describe particle interactions completely broke down when applied to this data. Every attempt to fit the observations into existing theoretical frameworks produced nonsensical results or required the introduction of impossible constants that would fundamentally rewrite our understanding of how the universe operates. What made the situation even more disturbing was the temporal aspect of these particle emissions. Advanced timing analysis revealed that the particles were being detected slightly before the light that should have announced their presence, suggesting a violation of causality itself. In normal physics, cause must always precede effect, and information cannot travel faster than light. Yet here was empirical data showing particles that seemed to be arriving from their own future, as if they were leaking backward through time from events that had not yet occurred in our linear timeline. Multiple research teams working independently reached the same unsettling conclusion. These particles were not manufactured or engineered. They were dimensional artifacts, the residue left behind when something from another plane of existence intersects with our three-dimensional reality. The quantum foam that underlies space-time was being disturbed in ways that allowed matter from adjacent dimensional frameworks to briefly manifest in our universe before flickering back out of existence. 3I Atlas was not just moving through space, it was moving through dimensions, and every moment of its journey was leaving traces of realities that should remain forever separate from our own. The dimensional breach hypothesis. Dr. Elena Volkov, a theoretical physicist at CERN who specializes in extra-dimensional models and brain cosmology, was among the first scientists to propose what has become known as the dimensional breach hypothesis. Her controversial paper, initially rejected by mainstream journals before being published in an independent physics archive, argues that 3I Atlas is not an object in the conventional sense, but rather a manifestation of dimensional instability, a place where the membrane separating parallel universes has grown dangerously thin and begun to tear. According to Volkov's framework, our universe exists as one membrane or brane floating in a higher dimensional space alongside countless other universe membranes, each with potentially different physical laws and constants. Under normal circumstances, these branes remain completely separate, unable to interact or exchange matter and energy. However, certain theoretical scenarios involving massive energy concentrations or exotic matter configurations could create weak points where two branes come close enough to allow limited interaction. 3I Atlas, Volkov argues, represents exactly such a weak point. A traveling dimensional wound that is allowing particles and energy from another universe to leak into our own. The hypothesis explains several of the most baffling observations associated with 3I Atlas. The impossible particle signatures make perfect sense if they represent matter governed by slightly different physical laws, particles that exist in a universe where quantum mechanics operates according to modified rules. The temporal anomalies fit naturally into a model where time flows differently in adjacent dimensional frameworks, creating situations where cause and effect relationships appear scrambled when viewed from our perspective. The inexplicable energy emissions could represent the massive forces involved in holding open a dimensional breach against the natural tendency of space-time to heal such ruptures. Volkov's work includes detailed mathematical predictions about what should happen as 3I Atlas continues its journey through our solar system. If the dimensional breach hypothesis is correct, the object should leave behind a trail of quantum instability, regions of space where the barriers between dimensions remain weakened even after the primary anomaly has passed. These damaged regions would act as potential sites for additional breaches, creating a spreading network of dimensional weak points that could eventually destabilize the entire local region of spacetime. The implications of this scenario are genuinely terrifying. A small, localized breach might be interesting from a scientific perspective, but a spreading pattern of dimensional instability could lead to catastrophic consequences. Imagine regions of space where the laws of physics become unreliable, where matter and energy behave according to conflicting rules imported from multiple different universes simultaneously. Ships traveling through such regions would encounter unpredictable forces. Communication systems would fail, as electromagnetic radiation followed impossible paths. Eventually, if the instability spread far enough and grew severe enough, entire sections of our universe could become uninhabitable as the fundamental constants that allow stars, planets, and life to exist were overwritten by values imported from alien dimensional frameworks. Critics of Volkov's hypothesis point out that it makes several assumptions about the nature of extra dimensions and interbrain dynamics that remain completely unproven. The existence of parallel universes, while theoretically possible under certain interpretations of quantum mechanics and string theory, has never been experimentally confirmed. The mechanisms by which dimensional breaches could form and propagate are entirely speculative, based on mathematical models that may bear no relationship to physical reality. Yet the critics cannot explain the observations any better. When faced with data that violates known physics, scientists must either expand their theoretical frameworks or reject the data as somehow flawed. The dimensional breach hypothesis represents one possible expansion, a framework that accounts for the impossible by invoking the existence of the previously unconsidered. What makes Volkov's work particularly disturbing is her calculation of the energy requirements for creating and maintaining a dimensional breach. Her models suggest that the forces involved are comparable to those present during the first moments after the Big Bang, energies so enormous that they dwarf anything achievable through conventional processes. If 3I Atlas truly represents a dimensional wound, then something or someone with access to universe-scale power has deliberately created this breach. The implication is clear. We are not dealing with the random wandering of a space rock or even the purposeful exploration of an alien civilization. We are witnessing the actions of entities or forces that operate on scales, and according to motivations that human minds may be fundamentally incapable of comprehending. The public remains unaware. Throughout all of this, the general public remains almost completely unaware of the dimensional crisis unfolding above their heads. Official statements from space agencies continue to describe 3I Atlas in reassuring terms as an unusual but not threatening interstellar visitor. The particle anomalies are described as interesting scientific puzzles requiring further study. The theoretical work on dimensional breaches remains confined to obscure academic papers and classified government briefings. This information control is not the result of some grand conspiracy, but rather reflects the genuine uncertainty still surrounding the situation. Officials are reluctant to cause global panic based on theoretical models that might prove incorrect. The economic and social disruption that would follow public disclosure of an existential dimensional threat could itself cause massive harm, potentially more harm than the dimensional effects that may or may not materialize as predicted. Yet some scientists and officials believe the public has a right to know what might be coming. Leaked information has begun appearing in fringe online communities where speculation about 3I Atlas has taken on increasingly apocalyptic tones. Most of these discussions mix genuine leaked data with wild speculation and outright fabrication, making it nearly impossible for ordinary people to separate signal from noise. The question of when and how to inform the public weighs heavily on decision makers. A premature announcement could cause catastrophic panic for a threat that never fully materializes. Waiting too long could leave populations unprepared for dimensional effects that might require specific actions to survive. The ethical complexity is profound, and there are no clear right answers. Meanwhile, amateur astronomers continue tracking 3I Atlas, unaware that the faint point of light in their telescopes might represent the harbinger of reality itself unraveling. The object continues its precise trajectory toward perihelion, steadily approaching the moment when, according to some models, the dimensional cascade will accelerate beyond any possibility of control. What happens next? As this script concludes, 3I Atlas continues its inexorable journey toward the sun. The perihelion passage is now just weeks away. Whatever happens next will determine whether the dimensional breach hypothesis represents genuine physics or merely the fevered speculation of scientists confronting data they do not yet understand. Best case scenario, the particle anomalies prove to have conventional explanations that simply require updates to existing theory rather than complete paradigm shifts. The dimensional breach hypothesis fades into history as an interesting but incorrect speculation, a reminder that even expert scientists can be dramatically wrong when confronting genuinely novel phenomena. Worst case scenario, Chen's cascade models prove accurate or even conservative. The dimensional barriers throughout our local region of space collapse within months of perihelion, creating an expanding zone where physical reality becomes fundamentally unreliable. Human civilization faces an existential crisis unlike anything in our history, a threat that cannot be fought with weapons or escaped through evacuation because it attacks the very structure of the space-time we inhabit. Most likely, reality lies somewhere between these extremes. The dimensional effects are probably real, but more limited than the most alarming predictions suggest. Some spacecraft systems will fail. Some regions of space will become hazardous or impassable. Some fundamental constants might shift slightly, but catastrophic reality breakdown remains improbable. Humanity will adapt, as we have adapted to every previous challenge, developing new technologies and new understanding to cope with dimensional instability as the new normal feature of our cosmic environment. What remains certain is that 3I Atlas has already changed our universe simply by forcing us to seriously consider possibilities we previously dismissed. Whether or not dimensional breaches prove real, we now know that the stable space-time we took for granted might not be guaranteed. The barriers between universes might not be eternal and impermeable. Reality itself might be more fragile than we imagined. In the coming weeks, as 3I Atlas completes its closest approach to the Sun, instruments across the world and throughout the solar system will watch with unprecedented intensity. The data collected during perihelion may finally answer the questions that have consumed the scientific community, or it may simply deepen the mystery, revealing new impossibilities that push our understanding even further beyond comfortable boundaries. One thing has become clear through all the confusion and speculation. We live in a universe far stranger than most people realize. The comfortable Newtonian clockwork of everyday experience sits atop quantum foundations that remain deeply mysterious. And now, potentially, we face the reality that even quantum mechanics as we understand it might represent only one local configuration of physical law, one island of stability in a vast ocean of dimensional possibilities. 3I Atlas is not just a space object. It is a message, whether intentional or not, that we are not in control of the fundamental rules governing our existence. Something out there, whether natural process or artificial intervention, can tear holes in the fabric of space-time itself. And once we know that is possible, we can never return to the innocent certainty we felt before. The universe is more dangerous, more mysterious, and infinitely more interesting than we dared to imagine. And now that knowledge cannot be forgotten or ignored. We must face whatever comes next with open eyes, knowing that the ground beneath our feet, the space around us, even the flow of time itself might not be as solid and reliable as generations of humans assumed. Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more quality content.